Good evening and welcome. This is the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It is Monday, July 26, 2021. It's 7 o'clock p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Would all please join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone should have a copy of the agenda. Are there any changes, corrections, additions to the agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next, we have the minutes from our July 12, 2021 meeting. Those minutes appear on pages 4 through 6. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Ed'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor of the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Next up, we will address visitors. Is there anyone that would like to speak to the council on any agenda item? Seeing no one, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on any matter whatsoever? Seeing no one. Next up, we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda begins in detail on page 7 and concludes with the resolution on page 25, and includes the following budgeted purchases in excess of $10,000 to B&B Commercial Coating LLC for fire hydrant sandblasting for $10,800. To Ferguson Waterworks for 4 fire hydrant and water main accessories for $17,447.46. Following license to consumption and display license to Nicollet County Ag Society for 400 Union for July 27th, 2021 to March 30th, 2022. Temporary on sale liquor license to St. Peter Chamber of Commerce for 101 South Front Street for August 17th, 2021. Temporary on sale liquor license to Nicollet County Trap Association for 400 Union Street from August 11th, 2021 to August 15th, 2021. Plus the regular schedule of disbursements for July 8th through July 21st, 2021. Are there any questions or comments concerning the consent agenda?
I have a quick question.
I will recognize Council Member Noel.
Pete, regarding the hydrants and determining deficient flow, is that something that you do during the hydrant flushing, or is there some other process for?
We do that continually. We do that on a regular basis continually. We have a model that we work with. It's a GIS model and a hydraulic model that we put all of our flow systems into. And we've identified several areas that are weak. And so what we do is work on those areas each year, budget a certain amount of money and then go after it.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, as I said, the resolution for the approval of consent agenda appears on page 25. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Noel?
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Zeman?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos?
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat?
Aye.
Councilmember Gary Johnson?
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Next, we have unfinished business, which we have none, so we'll move right into new business. And the first thing we have is the police department position descriptions. And Chief, if you want to come up.
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And we don't need anything more than your name, but just since this is your first time, I think, appearing, except for being sworn in,
Yes,
if you would just tell the audience who you are.
Matthew Groko. I am the Chief of Police, St. Peter Police Department. And as the mayor mentioned, I was sworn in last week, and officially July 1st was my first start date with the city.
Okay. What do you have for us tonight, Matt?
I just wanted to share with the council just some changes that had been done to some of the job descriptions within our police department. There might be more changes that we'll have a discussion about in the future, but particularly tonight, just to direct your attention to a few of the job description areas. The first one is going to deal with the patrol officer. The second one will deal with the detective job description. And there might be a question as to why the change needs to occur. After reviewing some of these, when I took office, I noticed that some hadn't been changed since 1999. And I think just for the focus, for that reason, I really looked into, having gone through all those positions myself, just what was needed. And honestly, I wanted to be a little bit more descriptive and specific in some of those job descriptions that would be helpful for the patrol officer and then the both detectives. So if you will, I'll just point out just a few changes that might be of interest, and certainly I'm willing to answer any questions if there's more. But first, with the patrol officer, some slight changes just for consistency to the physical requirements for the patrol officer, and we really just changed them to be consistent with all of the physical requirements for all the other job descriptions. There was a slight change in the years when it comes to being eligible, which would be a minimum qualification. Again, that's a 2-year degree in law enforcement. And the change for our job description for the qualification for the minimum side was 3 years, and it used to be 5 years. So we reduced that to 3 years. We're really trying to focus on, the retention part and having more people interested in the position for patrol officer. So we're crossing our fingers that progress will pay off, and we're very hopeful. So under the desired qualification for the patrol officer, there was some talk previously, 1999, about specialized training and or law enforcement certificates. What I wanted to do is really identify those areas that would be of interest to the city. So we're looking for the specificity to include emergency management, crime scene processing, tactical response, and one that is near to me is the mental health response and the de-escalation tactics and training that we all receive annually. But if we can have people identify those in the application process, that would be helpful for us to know that they have that training. And then the last one for patrol officer was the ability to speak Spanish or Somali. That is always a point with our Hispanic population, is to really have that service and understanding available. We use a trooper that lives locally, and she's always very helpful. But that's one thing that I had in college, and if you're not using it, you're probably losing it. So that's one area that I was interested in. And getting on, are there any questions from the council related to the patrol officer?
Anyone? Chair recognizes Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Yes.
Well, first I want to say I appreciate you taking a look at these. 1999 was a long time ago, and it's really good to keep these job descriptions fresh and up to date. I don't have any questions or concerns about the content, but I just noticed a typo. It's the third bullet point down in essential functions. Using the community-oriented policing philosophy, works with community members to identify and resolve. So it's listed as resolve in the other job description, just changing it from resolution to resolve.
Oh, yes.
Great catch.
Otherwise, I think the changes look great.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Question on the first one? I do have a question for you, Matt. Do you prefer Matt or Chief? Where are we at?
Please, Matt is great, Mr. Mayor.
You mentioned the Somali and the Spanish. What about the reverse of that? If we hire a Somalian, a person of Somalian descent, or a Spanish-speaking person, do we require them to have English? No English?
Well, I think it's only critical, I think, just to the flow of the department is to be versed in any language that is part of the community. So I would say that certainly English is going to be important, as is, the Spanish and the Somali language.
And somewhere in here, I know in most of them it says usually a proficiency. Does it say it and I missed it?
Yeah, it's on page 30 under actions, speak and understand English, read and
Okay,
write English.
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
No problem, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else? Continue on, please.
All right, thank you. Then I'll direct your attention to some changes in your pages number 33 and 34. I didn't bullet point these. They are significant when it comes to the desired qualifications. Some slight changes to the police detective job description is a 2-year degree in law enforcement from a post-accredited, and then we did a little bit reduction in the years because we are a younger department. We wanted to get to those people that might have an interest. Certainly we're much younger when it comes to 1 to 2 year officers, but so we did reduce that to 3 years or 5 years experience as a police officer. So just a slight adjustment there in years when it comes to that. And then on page, in addition to that, we wanted to add some computer skills as a minimum qualification. That wasn't on there previously. I think that's important, certainly. I'm finding out how important it is as chief of police. So computer skills was added. And then on page 34, under the desirable qualifications, there are a number of new ones that we added in regards to the previous job description. I don't know if the council preferred that I note all of those. I'm willing to do that. Certainly a few of them is the recognition of a master's degree from an accredited educational institution. And then I wanted to get specific for the detective part of things, and that was crime scene processing. There's a lot of opportunity for officers to go out and find that training. We're very supportive of that, and we want to have that really as a critical part for each officer. Then with interview and interrogation, after 23 years of being involved in numerous interviews, and then beyond that too, it's so important for that part to be noted. Search warrant applications, that's really what it's coming down to in many investigations, so having knowledge in that. Then finally, a few other ones was training or supervision in law enforcement, and then training for emergency management. So those were a few of the new additions to the desired qualifications.
Okay. Questions? Chair recognizes Councilmember Carrie Johnson. This is great.
So under desirable qualifications, 3 or more years experience as an officer with the St. Peter Police Department. I understand that that's standard practice to hire from within for this type of position. Can you speak to the thinking behind that, and do you imagine a situation where we'd ever have to hire externally for this role?
I would imagine that. That is something, Ms. Johnson, that I've been thinking often about. Realistically, it will start as an internal, and we'll just have to see if there's going to be that interest internally, and then I'm prepared to go external with that position. Again, it eliminates a lot of the possibilities for officers based simply on the 3-year desired qualification. So I've had conversations about that with the officers already during some meetings that we've had. So I am prepared. I want us to be the best, but I think when you talk about internal, just the knowledge of policy and procedure, I think the training that we know that there are a number of internal candidates have this training when it comes to interrogation and search warrants. So I know that we have some very good options, and if we don't have that interest from them, I'm very much willing to go externally.
I was going to ask if there's development that happens from within to sort of prepare for a role like this.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's certifications.
Yeah,
and
there's development and opportunities. I think when I worked as a detective for 13 years, I would take those officers that might have a challenging case and work with them. I think you have to be able to be willing to teach in that detective position and be willing to go out with them and do those interviews and show them how to do it, because not that mine is the best way, however, mine does oftentimes work. So it's really challenging those officers. Let's try to do this together as a team.
Thank you.
And so that's what we're hopeful for.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, if I could add to that, Matt and I discussed this quite a little bit, and if we didn't believe that there were qualified people within the officer group currently, we would have come back with a suggestion that that happened. But this really is, at least at this point, from my perspective, a balance in that as we see a younger department, as we see new officers, one of the challenges that we're going to have as a small sworn numbered department, are there opportunities for advancement? And we don't want to cut that off very quickly or without some forethoughts. We want to provide opportunity internally first at this stage. You'll see threaded through both of these descriptions some organizational things that we're trying to do to provide opportunity. And you see that as a part of what Matt described as the reduction in the minimum number of years. That's an effort to increase the potential pool in a time where hiring officers, and what we see in other communities, the amount of applicants has substantially, it's gone down a lot. And so we want to provide as much opportunity as we can and count on our training and other opportunities that we provide, I think maybe more readily than lots of other departments. The council provides us a lot of resources to do those types of, to do training and educational opportunities. And so that's, in some respects, a feather in our cap for officers that want to continue to progress. So you see that kind of threaded throughout both of these descriptions, frankly. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Questions? Matt, I have one, basically it's on page 34. What, you use this word demonstrated, what, on all of the, in front of all of these descriptions, what is demonstrated? What degree, is there degrees of demonstration?
You know, I think there's just the ability or the want to get involved in something like that. And when I speak to demonstration, I'm looking, Chuck, at some of those officers that I've worked personally with. I'm working on many different investigations with many different officers, and so do they have the ability to demonstrate that? I think you can qualify demonstration when you review police reports to see whether or not they have the ability to collect evidence. Do they have the ability or the want to go out and do those maybe difficult interrogations or those interviews? So that demonstration is very much sort of what it describes to me, which might not be helpful for the council, but it is really showing that ability via reports when those are reviewed every morning, and then having worked with the detectives. You'll have an understanding quickly, Mr. Mayor, in police reports, if there's that training and experience that is always continuing.
If I may, to give a more administrator's perspective on this, this is language that we work to insert in most, if not all, of your job descriptions, and we're really looking for people that have done things. And as you'll see in this description on page 34, it says and/or training. And so there is value in people having done this before. And so as they're applying for that job, we want examples of what they have done. And we think that's that has the potential to be valuable, and that's why it falls under desirable.
Well, but this is demonstrated.
Yep.
So, I guess, you know, it's kind of to me, it's kind of a subjective situation. Maybe I'm wrong there. That looks like it's more subjective than anything else. Maybe the word documented. I mean, you know, but what you were just saying, there's a lot of this stuff isn't documented. You just worked with somebody, and you had this feeling, subjective feeling, I think, you know, as to their ability to handle something. So that's what I was just kind of curious. You know.
Yeah, no, great question, Mr. Mayor. I think it's, you know, when I look at it, as far as demonstrated, I'm really looking at that application process, and to have those applicants really hit on those and provide examples of those. Certainly that any investigation that occurs right now within the department, I'm part of that review. Right now, because we only have one detective, I'm going to be part of likely that investigation too. And so I try not to make it be subjective, but rather objective. And so that is just the word that really came to mind when I
Okay.
did
I'm
this.
fine. I just
Yeah.
didn't
No, I
know
appreciate
what
that.
kind of thought, process was
Yeah.
for coming to that.
Yeah.
To that work, because it can mean a lot of things.
Mhm.
Anyone else? All right. The resolution. Let me get to the page. The resolution adopting the updated police department position descriptions, the patrol officer and the detective appear on page 35. Is there a motion for approval?
So
So,
moved.
second.
Any other questions or comments? Call roll, please, Barb.
Councilmember Ed Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Zeman.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Gary Johnson,
Aye.
Councilmember Dewan.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Next up, we have the Wellhead Protection Plan, Part 2, the sequel. Mr. Moulton.
Mayor Zeman and City Council, back in 2018, the Minnesota Department of Health approved our Part 1 of the plan. Our Wellhead Protection Plan includes two parts. The first part is the pollution prevention of our major sources. We go out and identify where those sources are, and we try to prevent the activities from entering our aquifer. The Minnesota Department of Health approved that plan. We brought that back to council and they adopted that plan, which triggered Part 2. Of course, COVID came in and started a little delay in a lot of the activities, but the Minnesota Department of Health gave us an extra year to complete Part 2 of the process. Part 2 is really inventory and identifying contaminant sources. And so what we do from that point on is we start looking at actions that we're going to take to prevent those activities from making water quality in St. Peter a little more difficult. A Wellhead Protection Plan is really about a 10-year event in the life of a water treatment system. Our goal this year with Part 2 is to educate the public, develop a spill response plan, and provide training in areas where we can see an impact on what's going on there. The schedule that you were seeing on page 37 talks about the major milestones on how we're going to accomplish those activities. A couple of things of note is that we are required to notify other government units and agencies within our county and wellhead protection area that we are going to do these activities. This is not the first time that we've done this, so we're getting pretty good at notifying and working with our other agencies. We also have to educate the public. We do a really good job of this as well. We try to use our website and Facebook and a lot of social media to try to get the point across. St. Peter's recognized on the state level for wellhead protection, being very proactive in trying to protect the sources that we have here. Part of the milestones include wells and septics, identifying areas of influence, working on, like I mentioned, on a response plan, and then trying to coordinate those activities. It takes a lot to coordinate those activities with groups of people and with agencies that really don't have a buy-in in what we're doing. And so making that a public issue and bringing that importance level to a different level is very important. The other thing that we do is we review and evaluate ourselves quite often. We're required 3 times during the course of our wellhead protection plan to supply information to the state that says, here's what we see as a weakness, here's a strength as we go forward. And then we have to evaluate ourselves and say, hey, we could do more in this area. As you guys are aware, we do have reverse osmosis in our water treatment system. So although we've identified several influences of pollutants, we still are making treatment processes available to our public water supply. The Wellhead Protection Plan was supplemented by a $10,000 grant. Our water superintendent, Jeff Knutson, went out and solicited feedback from the Department of Health and looked at different activities and identified that we could use about $10,000 to have an engineer help us put some of the contaminant sources together and to do some of the engineering work. And he was successful in getting that grant for us, which really helped control the cost of the overall plan. The fiscal impact for the all of the activities that we've identified on page 37 will be budgeted for during the normal budgeting process. So there's not going to be too many activities that we bring back individually, but wanted you to know that we have a plan and that we're looking to be proactive in those situations. There is a resolution on page 38 asking you to approve Part 2 and allowing us to move forward with our plan and schedule.
All right. Are you open for questions?
Yes, sir.
Questions for Mr. Moulton? Chair recognizes Councilmember Kerry Johnson.
Pete, I had a question about the timeline, and I'm wondering what Minnesota Department of Health is really looking for when they're evaluating what we submit to them. Are they looking for an appropriate timeline to ensure that there's progress throughout the 10 years so that it doesn't get left to the end? Or, you know, what are they evaluating, and what would cause them to not approve a plan?
What they're really looking for is when we go through the development portion of a plan, we tell them what we're going to do with the constituents that we have and the resources that we have. And then they look at that and say, well, is that enough for your community to be proactive in this manner, or you're not being proactive enough? And so we're very active on the state and federal level with wellhead protection, and so we're always trying new things. Right now you have 2 agencies that are working with us in the western areas of St. Peter on just wellhead protection alone. That's the Department of Ag, who's helping us monitor the ravines and ditches, and Soil and Water Conservation District, who is helping us implement a grant to try to control erosion and soil sediment coming towards the wellhead protection area.
So when we're developing our timeline internally
Yep.
to submit and kind of plan for some of these activities, we're also keeping those other agencies in mind and when it makes sense to connect with them.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Chair recognizes Councilmember DeVos.
So I think you kind of answered part of this question. I see, well, one of the things brought up here was the subsurface sewage treatment system, so I'm assuming that's septic systems.
Yes.
Also, do you go outside the city and looking at like farmland and stuff, and is that kind of looking at the drainage issues to see what kind of abatement things can be done to?
That's correct. We have a drinking water supply management area that roughly goes from Highway 99 north to Dodd Road, extends out to, can't remember the township road name, but it's about 4 miles west of town. And in that area is our drinking water supply management area that we implement and look at all of these solutions. We've been very successful in working with the farm community, using our resources like the Soil and Water Conservation District and other county agencies to be in touch with them and to use them to help us reach farmers.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Questions? Chair recognizes Councilmember Ed Johnson.
How come they drag it out 10 years? Wouldn't it be better if we knew there was an issue to get it fixed right away?
Yeah, well, the situation is once you identify an area where you think you can improve, it takes about that amount of time in order to start looking at ways to implement changes in procedures. So by the time 2028 comes around, we're already starting on phase 1 again for the next 10-year cycle.
Okay.
So it may seem like a long period of time for you. This is about the 3rd one for me. It does seem to compress a little.
Yeah, just seems like a long time. But
Yeah.
as long as you know what's going on.
Anyone else? Questions for Mr. Moulton? The resolution approving the amended Part 2 of the Wellhead Protection Plan appears on page 38. Is there a motion for approval?
It'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any more questions at this point? Call the roll, please, Barb.
Mayor Zinn.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Councilmember Kerry Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Doyle.
Aye.
Councilmember Ed Johnson.
Aye.
Resolution is approved. That concludes our new business. Next up, we have reports. I'm up. Don't have anything. Todd.
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor, I have 2 of them that I'll do, and the 3rd one I'll leave for Pete. First of all, we do have a city-county liaison committee meeting this Wednesday coming up. You are involved in that, as is Councilmember Kerry Johnson.
Correction.
Oh,
City school instead
I'm
of city
sorry.
county.
I'm sorry, you're right, city school. So that, again, is Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Minnesota River Valley Transit, we had to reschedule the meeting. I thought we had a quorum. Councilmember Bruflat had indicated that she could not be there, so she was off the hook, and we didn't know until about 5 or 10 minutes before the meeting that the second person from the sewer could not be there. So that's what caused the scheduling conflict. So I have visited with those folks and talked with Jasper a little bit. We encourage folks to call in advance if they can't be there for some reason so that we know. But that's scheduled for August 2nd at 2:30, so that's a Monday. That's an important meeting for us because we are a little bit, more than a little bit, but we are on the hook to have a resolution that approves the grant application funding through the state and feds. And they know that this has happened, so they're aware of this, and just one of those things. So I wish we had been contacted sooner. And the last one that I have is water use. As you know, with the ongoing drought, and it's in the news quite a little bit, water usage. So Pete is here to talk about that within the city of St. Peter and provide some tips for folks as we all look to conserve water during a little bit more challenging time. So Pete, if you would.
Thank you. As you guys are aware, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources has notified public water suppliers that we are in a drought warning phase, and that they are asking that we reduce or conserve our water usage as much as possible. The goal that they're trying to have us reach is 150% of what our January usage would be. So we're roughly a little under 1 million in January of what we pump for water, depending on how Gustavus is in session or not in session, or where they're at. And they're looking for us to reach about 1.5 million or a little less from that point of view. So we began an education slow-ins and putting out information on not only our website but on social media, along with the other community water suppliers. Rest assured, though, we have checked our numbers, and although we're still pumping around 2 million, so we're a little high yet, we're looking at outdoor watering as the first area that we'd ask people to conserve a little bit of water. Not necessarily that they water every day, but maybe every other day or every third day would still help quite a bit with water conservation. Our wells are not seeing the influence that a lot of communities are. We are very well prepared for the activities that we are currently pumping, and we are not seeing an influence. Nonetheless, we still need to participate with the Department of Natural Resource and the permitting agency with who we work with, and we'll be in touch with them on a regular basis, letting them know what activities we have planned and how we're doing things. Your reverse osmosis treatment process has allowed you to draw water from 3 aquifers, 3 different water levels as we speak. And we are not seeing an influence in any of those aquifers because we have the ability to vary our pumping from each of those. Communities that have either all surface water or only one aquifer to pump from are in a lot of trouble right now because they are losing water capacity at their sources. So as we sit good, we're still working at ways to help conserve and be good stewards.
Pete, you said that we're about 2 million. And we're trying to strive to get to 1.5 million gallons. What is normal for this time of year?
It's anywhere between 1.5 and 2.2 probably.
Okay, somewhere in there.
So when we see a half-inch rain or more, we're down in the 1.5 range immediately,
Right.
just like that. But days where it's 90 and humidity is high, you're seeing extra water being used.
A few years ago, we took part in, I think a lot of people probably did, there were quite a few, on the rain barrel situation, but it doesn't do much good when you have to take a
No.
hose to fill a rain barrel.
No rain for the barrel.
Yeah, no rain for the barrel. Questions of Pete. Chair recognizes Council Member DeVos.
So you mentioned the things you're asking citizens to do as far as watering their lawn and stuff. So my question is, what are we doing? What is the city doing?
We're doing the same.
You are doing the
Yeah,
same.
we're following the guidelines that we put out there, so we're
So every
making
third day or
adjustments.
so, or how
Yeah,
often?
we're making adjustments as we go here and looking at the facilities that we have to see what we can do to make that change.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to follow up as long as, and I know somebody over here had their hand up. So on our fields up at Jefferson, let's say,
Yep.
well, how often do they get watered?
I don't know the exact date and time that they operate, but I believe that they used to run every day.
Because I drove by there today and I know they were watering up there. So I
Yep, they were
didn't know.
doing some work up there today.
This was just one truck that was there.
Yep,
So,
yep, so they were doing activities
Okay.
to see what we had going, so.
all right, somebody else had their hand up. Chair recognizes Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
Have we already, or will we post these recommendations to the public, either
Yes.
on social media or in the
They
hot sheet?
will, along with suggestions on here's what you can do to help conserve water.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Chair recognizes Councilmember Bruflat.
Pete, is that updated from the post I already saw on the city page regarding water? Will there be further recommendations coming out?
There will be, we, in our conservation plan that we have on the DNR website, there are different stages. So if this drought warning phase goes to a drought response phase, we will implement other additional conservation measures and then bring those back.
Thank you.
Anyone else on this matter? Todd, did you have anything else to add?
Barb reminded me that we could have under the reports that filing for local election, council and mayor seats opens tomorrow, I believe.
Is that already?
It's, man, the summer's gone by fast.
Just does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Chair recognizes Councilmember Carrie Johnson.
I attended the RETA meeting for the month of August, and that's Regional Economic Development Alliance. With Russ, it was our first in-person meeting in Lake Crystal, my first ever in-person meeting with that group. And they just asked to share that their annual meeting, they plan to hold their annual meeting on September 14th. So if you're interested, council members, on the activities of RETA, save the date, September 14th. More details to come.
They've usually held that at Gustavus. Is that what they're looking at probably?
Yes,
Okay.
it'll be at Gustavus.
All right. Anyone else? Pete, thank you for your presentation. You got away on me here.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Nobody has anything else to add? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Ed'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Well, we might get a little relief.